Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 250 of Storyteller Conclave. This is a show all about helping you run the best tabletop role-playing game that you can, whether you're a new storyteller or dungeon master learning the craft, or an experienced storyteller looking to take your game to the next level. I'm Sarah.
I'm Rob.
How we doing, Rob?
I'm trying not to cough right now, but like I've got that like post-nasal drip that's just going into my chest.
Oh, yeah.
And so like I'm on the verge of it right now, and I'm like, oh god, I don't want to cough into the mic.
Well, anybody out
Apologies.
Anybody out there not knowing what we're going through here in Michigan, yesterday it was like mid-30s. Today it hit 60.
Yeah. It's supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to go in above the 50s today.
Yeah, let's see.
And tomorrow's supposed to be warmer.
So it was right around freezing for those of you who use Celsius, and then 60. Let's see here. It hit 15.5 today. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird right now.
So it's wreaking havoc on both of our sinuses right now. So
there's not a single person who hasn't had like a mild cough that I know that has allergies. At any level. They're like, everybody's just like, I don't know what's going on. We're like, we're all doing the same thing, so clearly it's similar. Like, we got stuff happening, so. Thanks, Knox. I will try and stop it if I can.
That's the funniest response to anybody sneezing. Stop it.
Like you can. This involuntary response, you
that's
can.
That's why it's funny.
It's been a long work week. Like,
oh my god!
Geez.
Yeah, for both of us.
Yeah,
and that punctuated with Sean and I got engaged.
Yes, congratulations!
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were going to announce it or not.
Oh yeah, no, I can't shut up about it. No.
Well, now it's recorded in posterity and will be published to the internet for everyone to hear.
Exactly. So yeah, we've been doing that thing where we're like, fiance, can you get me a glass of water, please?
Yeah.
Just to say it, because
why do I feel like I'm Janine Garofalo, where she's like, drinking when she lets it just dribble out. Like, I don't care. Like, I love you guys. I sincerely do. This is the sickliest, sweetest time I've seen both of you. So, talking all about this. So it's good. Eat it up. Eat it up.
I love it.
Yeah,
so.
this is fantastic timing for you. And the other side of that is, like, we've had so many weird tragedies within friends and people around us, too. So the good news is nice.
I was saying to Sean, too, he's like, God, this is going on, and that's going on, and then this happened. And I'm like, it comes in threes. Threes is the thing, so we should be done now.
I'm terrified, so...
We should be done now, so we're good.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, it's been a hell of... Like, we both need... We joke about this being therapy night, but holy cow, we both need this
We so
tonight,
need
man.
this tonight to be therapy night. We had a good discussion about this.
Yeah, I thought so.
I will say this. We were as bad as we have ever been about getting this show ready.
Literally hours before it happened.
I will say I did give this show a lot of thought a few weeks back and kind of prepping up to this, like where my headspace was for where I wanted to go with it.
Yeah.
And then I didn't put anything down on the sheet. You started it, really? Like, after I made like some minor notes. And then you just, I show up and you've got 3 pages of notes. But all of it in kind of the same direction that I was going in. So we had some really good straightforward on this, so I think we were good.
Yeah, I think I do the same thing where like the show sheet is just a collection of shower thoughts until it isn't.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it comes out to. So,
but yeah, no, I think we're both on the same page about this one. So today we are talking. Let's stop dancing around it.
Yeah,
we are talking about evolving relationships. Now, kind of what we mean by this is that we're talking about like building relationships with NPCs. Maybe that's a love-hate relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that is a romance. Maybe that's the relationship between the heroes and the villain.
Mm-hmm.
But
it could even just be like respect and loyalty. So like, maybe it's a commander or even a noble that you're having to work for that you don't necessarily like, but you have respect for what they're doing.
Yeah, friendships, camaraderies, even working relationships.
Yeah, I always come back to the sergeant, like, I'll have your badge, if you weren't so good at what you do, kind of a thing.
Yeah. But it's really, honestly, the biggest way that I can think of to make your NPCs feel like real people. I know we've done whole episodes in the past about making life like NPCs and how, you give them goals and know how they move when you push against them in certain ways and stuff like that. But really, It's when they hit the table and they interact with your PCs and they start reacting like real people.
Yeah, they're a portion of the story that is not the plot, but still evolves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's something that the players can have a direct interface with. I always hear players talking about what it means to be connected to another NPC, right? That they had time and like space to evolve and get to know each other, and they have scenes and moments. Like it's not the main plot.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's happening.
Yeah.
It's their connection with somebody that made that plot feel real and connected.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, it's one of the best forms of world building, you know?
Very much so.
So much of your story, of your culture, of the story you want to tell through the people can be done through your NPC relationships.
Very much so. And it can help solidify the moment feeling more real. I mean, we talk about, like, in our day-to-day lives, like, you know, we might go on a vacation, we might see a beautiful sight, we might experience a wonderful meal, but 9 times out of 10, it's hard to really connect with that unless you're with someone. Mm-hmm. And it's oftentimes we talk about those moments in connecting with the people there when it happens.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you were just telling me about some concert you went to earlier tonight, and you specifically remembered this girl that you met there.
Yeah.
You know?
And it helped make it a solid memory. So role-playing is really no different than life as far as your brain is concerned, because you're still making all those connections. You're still going through all of the motions, and so that gives it a lasting impression. And honestly, storytellers, if you want your players to remember important factoids and things, these are ways to put them in their mind so that a month later when they come back to the game, it's still there.
Exactly.
So.
It's one thing to have a quest giver tell you to do something. It's another to have a quest giver you really care about ask you to do something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it's amazing when your players interact with the NPCs that you have because they paid attention.
Yep.
You know?
All right, so different types of relationships.
Yeah.
We were going to throw the R word around a lot tonight,
Yes.
relationship.
Yes.
But we wish you to know that we are not just talking about romantic relationships.
No.
Like we said earlier, there's a lot of different types. First off, prime to a lot of TTRPG settings because a lot of adventuring groups, in no matter the genre, have a transactional nature. Okay,
Yeah.
so business relationships, either a shopkeep to their favorite customer, a restaurant to their favorite regular, or a Johnson to a reliable Shadowrunner.
Exactly. Like the concept that you're going to these people on the regular to handle day-to-day things, it becomes kind of a second home in the player's mind of what they're comfortable with. So making that home have a feeling attached to it, not just a Johnson who hands them out missions, but someone who cares about them in some way or checks in on them. Or even so much as like that they turn around and do the same thing of like, hey, we want to get a better job. Wasn't he eating jelly beans the last time we saw him? Does anybody remember if they were all, I don't know, licorice or something? And so now your players are trying to butter up the Johnson. That's a connection that you cannot lose,
Right.
So.
Oh, licorice flavored? The man likes the taste of anus. What can I say? That's anise. It's
Anise.
anise.
It's a flavor. It's a flavor.
Okay, so there are obviously familial relationships.
Yeah.
Like your mother-daughter relationship, obviously father-son, siblings, even extended relatives, of feeling just the bond of grandmothers, granddaughters, aunts, uncles. You still feel that common bond of tribe.
Pets, even. I think pets
Even
are
pets.
a great thing, especially when you're returning to someone, not something that you have had throughout the entire campaign or story, but just the idea of like you're coming home and as you're crossing the farm field, you see your family dog rushing at you.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
That creates an emotional connection
That's
to that
a
moment.
tug on a heartstring right there, man. I love that. Friendships, obviously. It's a great model for friendships, even just amongst the PCs and stuff like that. But and you can have friendships in a lot of ways: born of respect, born of common interests, common backgrounds. So maybe we both, I find out we were both from the same village or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. We've got a bond now. Even common trauma.
Yeah.
We may not have anything in common other than we went through something together. And here we are. So.
Yeah, and these are often like almost in media res in some cases, where like an NPC shows up and the player, or the player might be going somewhere and they're like, "Hey, I'd like to spend some of my relationship meta currency. Someone here knows me." And now, as a storyteller, you're like, okay, well, obviously, if they know them, I'm going to have a little backstory. Okay, I'll come in with something. And now they're stepping into a scene with an NPC the player has never met before, but the character has to be very familiar with. And that shows relationship.
Yep. And then, of course, there is romantic relationships.
Yep.
Knox actually dropped in here teacher and disciple. I think we'd probably put that more in like a business relationship, but it kind of straddles between like business and family almost, or business and friendship.
I agree.
But no,
mentor mentee.
Yeah, mentor mentee, yeah, sort of thing. And of course, with romantic relationships, you've got to remember that romantic and sexual attraction are different things. Yeah. Okay.
We'll come back around to this.
So we'll come back around to the whole romance angle. We got a whole thing about it a little bit.
It's February. We'll be back.
But when we say romantic relationships, we are not just talking. In fact, we are very little talking about the bard who wants to roll seduction on the barmaid.
Oof, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, 3 ways.
Let me get the tea started before you enjoy your 3 ways of relationships.
All right, so there are, I believe, we kind of thought about it. There's 3 main ways that I can think of to introduce relationships into as a dynamic into your NPCs
and into the story itself.
Right. So the first one is an evolving relationship. If anybody who's been running tabletop RPGs for any length of time knows that human beings will pack bond with anything. You buy a Roomba, we give it a name.
Maybe put googly eyes on it.
Maybe
I'm not
put googly eyes on it, etc., etc. Might have named mine Dodogama because it's dumb and it eats rocks.
It does.
But your NPCs are no different, right? You're going to throw an NPC out there. Your players are going to arbitrarily decide that they are the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they are going to want to adopt them for whatever reason.
Yep.
Your Padre Inguise is probably one of my favorite examples of this.
Yep.
Rob was running a Seventh Seas campaign and threw in a bit character that was basically just supposed to be a sort of face for us for the Inquisition.
For the opening of the Inquisition. Actually, like a preamble kind of telegraphing that they were on their way.
Right, but he wasn't supposed to be much.
No,
right?
He was very, very, very small. He was the local parishioner, basically.
And every female character in that group went, Padre Inguise, he's dreamy.
Yeah, and seduced him, and
then we couldn't let him go.
Yeah.
So he just kept popping back up all over the place.
Now he's been in
2 campaigns.
Yeah, he's been in multiple stories because the name is known.
Yeah,
the character is known.
Sometimes you're just going to have that, where your players latch onto a character or to an NPC, and they're going to want to build some sort of relationship with them. At that point, it's worthwhile investing the time and energy to try to make that relationship lifelike and evolve. So the second one is what I call the fishing relationship. I'm not sure if that's the best name for it.
I think it fits because it is where, like, you
are baiting a hook and dropping it into your character pool.
Yeah, because you want them to latch onto it as a soon-to-be relationship.
Right.
Someone who's important to the story and could be involved in the plot, but you're not forcing it. Right? Like, you may have, like, your Count Strahd or dictator person that obviously the group is associated with, but then this, I don't know, seneschal from his group keeps popping up in the area. Maybe they're delivering notes, maybe they're doing other things, but seems to have an interest in the group. Followers are another great example of fishing relationships where you poke them into the party, because they're interested in becoming an adventurer themselves. so that the players either have to consider them an annoyance that they know are going to be around, or kind of accept them. You know?
Yeah.
But either way, it's you instigating it into the story.
Yeah.
Dropping that line, if you will.
Mostly, I use fishing relationships because I know there is one player in particular that is common to a lot of our groups that just absolutely loves adopting an NPC.
Yeah, feed him. Why not?
So I drop an NPC in there and just be like, this one would be perfect for you.
Yeah, it's kind of like feeding and caring of your players.
Yeah,
you know, it's that one that
exactly.
you got to throw in there. So.
And, you know, sometimes they also have other great places is like they've written something in their background, you know, that requires you know, like an old war comrade, you know, or something like that.
Yeah,
just so you can tie their plot into the wider world or something like that, you know.
It fills the void of certain things. Now, I think this is where we step just one step beyond that into mechanical relationships, ones that the game actually supports directly.
Right.
In some games, they're considered circles or backgrounds. Sometimes, like in 7th Sea, like literally it is like you have a nemesis or you're star-crossed, where NPCs...
Or both, if you're me.
both. Where an NPC is integral to your story and is part of it. Another one is like the life path system in Traveler, which may dictate that you do have a history. So, like, maybe you were in the military and you left because of your commander. Well, that commander's name is going to have meaning.
Right.
They're going to be an NPC that's part of it. And that returning to those things often through the game, depending on the mechanics that are involved, may give you a benefit pulling that card back out or involving that person. Whether you forcefully put them in as a dramatic space, like in the case of 7th Sea, or... you ask for it to be brought into the scene as a challenge.
Right. I like lots of White Wolf games have like contacts and allies as backgrounds you can take and stuff like that. So it's like for every dot in contacts, you have an important person that you can. It's like, okay, well, I took 3 points. I'm going to invent 3 NPCs. You know?
Yeah.
So
do the work of the DM for just a little bit, you know.
Right.
But either way, it's physically or mechanically part of the game. Be it something that that gives you XP or gives you meta currency or involves mechanics of the game directly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. So now we've got our NPCs, and we kind of know the different ways that relationships start, either because you caused them to happen because the game asks for them, or because your players decided to take one home
spend some money
and name him.
Yeah. Oh, that too. Yeah.
But how do we kind of get started with establishing, like, where's our starting point for an evolving relationship?
Well, I mean, there's a baseline entry point, because relationships can't really evolve if you don't know where they begin. Like, did it start on a business handshake and now you guys play 9 holes of golf every Saturday?
Right.
You know, because even as much as we love our mysterious characters and their mystique, you need to have something pinned down to the PCs that they're connected with, that they understand a truth about it.
Yeah.
Whether that person starts out in one frame and ends in another through the evolution of them, the players need to know where they sit with them. I loved that 7th Sea with its NPCs in its books literally put in there whether they were a hero, a villain, or kind of a miscreant.
Right.
Like, you knew in the book, and it was very clear that players should understand that that's what these people are.
Yeah, you were when we were discussing this earlier, you were actually using Louis Vampa from the Count of Monte Cristo as a great example character, and you were talking about how there's several scenes throughout there that shows Montez's is Montez, right? Dantes's relationship with Vampa, as he kind of uses as a resource. But what it all comes down to, though, is that you've got this initial scene after the two of them meet, and it says, okay, well, Vampa's a pirate, and Dantes is an escaped convict.
Yeah.
Is an escaped convict that he picked up after he escaped from Chateau d'If, the prison.
Watery prison, yeah.
But there's a moment as he's gone back to, I believe, Paris, and they're in port, and Dantes is going to step off of the ship, And Vampa turns to him and basically is like, dude, have you ever been here before? And he's like, oh, no, we got history here.
Yeah.
Trust me. And he's like, well, you go chase down that history, and you're not going to resolve all that without stepping off the boat. So good luck, my friend, and if you ever need me, I'm here for you. You only need to ask. And he shakes his hand.
Yeah.
And at that moment, you've established the baseline, right?
Yeah.
We already kind of know he's a pirate, but that says to us a lot of things about how he might be mistrustful, he might lie.
He might have needs.
He might have needs, yeah. He might take advantage of Dantes in his hour of need. But in this moment, in this one scene, this one exchange, we've got the baseline established for Vampa to be his friend and a man of honor.
Yeah.
He may be a pirate, but he is a man of honor to his own.
Yeah, he trusts him.
Yes.
They trust each other, and that ties the rest of the scenes that almost would seem questionable.
Yeah,
in
like
what they're
give
doing.
us some examples. What else happens in this scene?
There's a specific scene where he comes back into play where basically another young man who is important to the story is getting attacked and is actually like taken prisoner almost, and then the Count shows up to help rescue him. And as they're escaping, basically, he stops, turns, and he tells the pirates, well done, and throws coin, and it's Vampa who catches it and steps into the light for a moment with kind of a devilish grin.
Yeah.
And you're like, without that previous scene of him establishing that they are friends and trusted, that you realize that he's bringing him back in to set a ball in motion.
Yeah.
And he's using somebody.
It's implied through the storytelling that he has asked Vampa to send some men to rough up the boy.
Yeah.
That he can heroically swoop in and fight off.
Right.
He'll punch him a couple times, and then he'll tell him to get lost, and they'll get out of there. And he throws him a sack of gold for it.
Yeah,
you know?
and him and his men will go enjoy the evening.
Exactly.
But it culminates...
Easy payday, and he looks like a hero.
It culminates later to a scene where basically the Count's ship is being raided. Mm-hmm. Because he kind of let it on that he was leaving and his gold would be on the ship. And you see this other gentleman basically ordering men around to take the things. And he says, hey, leave all but 2. Those are ours. And puts them on a cart. And as they finish loading them on the cart, a man basically throws a tarp over them, and as the camera pans up, it's Vampa, and you realize that's his crew. And he just taps the 2 chests that are clearly full to the brim with gold, and rides off. And without that previous scene, you would think he's robbing them.
He's robbing the Count of Monte Cristo,
because he knows more now.
Right.
The truth of the matter is, he
no, that's payment.
That's if it's payment at all. Like, he's happy to take it. But at the same time, there's trust. He could have taken the rest. He could have turned this whole deal.
Yep.
But he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have that bond.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's the difference. That's the thing about those types, is that the start point is the most important point, so that later when the player sees them doing something that might be out of character, they know the truth.
Yeah.
They know where things are at, because nothing has changed between them up to that point.
Right.
Or maybe it has. But either way...
Yeah. But
villains need to be known as villains.
Yeah, and when you're definitely a villain, NPC shows compassion. That's going to be noteworthy because
100%.
You've established a baseline that this person's a villain. And conversely, when you're definitely an ally, NPC is cold or hostile, that's also going to be noticed. Of like, oh, whoa, what's up?
Yeah,
we should be friends.
What changed?
What changed, yeah.
What did I do? What did you do?
But, if you don't have that baseline, or if you do the thing where, like, you want to make your characters cold and edgy and cagey and stuff like that, you're never going to establish that baseline, and so, okay, like, this person changed. So, they change all the time. We don't know who this dude is.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And your players will note that, and might not necessarily really attach to the story if it's wishy-washy in that sense.
And that's fine. I mean, some of your characters are mercurial, but try not to make all of them. And if you want to make someone meaningful, give them a baseline that players can attach to, and then shift and base all your vicissitudes on that baseline.
Yep, exactly. Let's talk about that shift.
All right, so what causes relationships to evolve?
There's a couple different ways. I mean, there's some mechanical ways.
Yeah, sure. I mean, lots of games have like reaction charts where you can, roll a persuasion check or whatever is equivalent in your game system to shift their reaction to you up or down the chart, make them more favorable or less favorable to you as needed. And yeah, I mean that can be a way.
Yeah.
I would say that's usually unsatisfying because it's just a roll. It's not the character's actions or words that cause that shift in the relationship. But it's really good for quick encounters where the NPCs you don't intend to put a lot of energy into. Like if you're just persuading a random encounter bandit not to loose his crossbow on you at point blank range, whoa, hold on, let's talk this out. All right, roll persuasion. That's fine. That's a good use for something like that.
Yeah.
And maybe that bandit goes on to be a larger character.
Sure.
But in the moment, we don't really need that to evolve much beyond a persuasion roll.
Right. And unless the player's attached to that moment and talk about that moment, you may not need to bring that NPC back around. But it doesn't hurt to make a note so that later on, if the players are like, yeah, we really double blind that guard back there and messed him up. Right? Okay, great. You tricked somebody. Wait a second, you're talking about it. Maybe I will have him come back around.
Yeah.
But maybe in a way that doesn't turn against the players. Maybe he'll come back around and they'll find him in a bar, unemployed.
Oh, we got fired because of their actions.
Yeah.
That's, little things like that. The next way is, I mean, obviously through the PC's words. Things PCs say to the NPC.
Yeah.
All right. Now, this seems really obvious, but there's some things to look out for here. First, listen carefully to how your PCs treat the NPC. Okay, and I mean that both textually and subtextually.
Yes.
Okay, if the PC is generally polite to an NPC, and I say that in giant air quotes, if they're generally polite, but comes off as snarky or dismissive, the NPC is still likely to give them a negative reaction. Well, I said all the nice words. Yeah, but you were a dick about it. Or a positive, kind reaction to positive, kind, nurturing words.
Yeah, I will say this in regards to being careful about this is also that players are different than their characters. Their words may not necessarily match well, and they may actually be in a bad headspace. But they might look at you and say, I'm going to try and comfort him. Like, I'm going to deal with his shit, whatever it may be, and just handle it.
Yeah.
But I want to be genuine. Okay, you want to be genuine. I can understand that you're not saying it, but I can get your drift of where you're going with this.
I find a lot of those discussions happen kind of in retrospect, and I think that's valuable not to do the thing like the chess thing where like, oh, you took your finger off the piece.
Right, exactly.
Oh, you already said it. You can't take it back. Don't do that. Like, we've all done that thing where we're like, okay, I say this, and the NPC goes, well, that's I'm reacting in a way that you didn't expect, and you go, whoa, hold on. Not what I meant. What I was trying to convey this to the NPC. Okay? Allow your character, or allow your player to better explain what their character is trying to express. Don't make the misunderstanding stand as their character's action. Allow them the latitude to correct and be like, I'm trying to get a positive reaction out of this person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if it's a dicey situation, maybe a roll is needed. Maybe you do need to roll some sort of a charisma or persuasion or diplomacy check or whatever's fit for your game.
And likewise, if it's something that you're establishing that you do, even if the player is a sweet talker or not, everyone gets the same chance because the dice really dictates how well it goes over.
Exactly.
Then leave that in as the case.
Exactly.
And I like that personally, especially when I have a mixed table of extroverts and introverts. Who may not know the right things to say, and even it might be the player next to them that says it right, but it's not their character. This way you can level that field a little bit and allow everybody to have equal footing, to be able to enjoy moments like that. But either way, give it the grace.
Yeah.
Give it the grace.
And lastly, I think it's important to keep context in mind.
Yes.
Because the NPCs don't know anything except what the PCs say to them.
Exactly.
Basically, okay? I mean, obviously, if they have some sort of external data source, but they don't know everything the storyteller does. They don't know everything the player does.
Yep.
The NPC knows only what the NPC knows, okay? So, context can play a lot into what their reactions are and how their relationships evolve because of it. So, i.e., if the players start bragging about how they liberated a valuable artifact from the noble's mansion, that just means they admitted to being burglars. Okay? And so that in and of itself may garner a very negative reaction from an NPC, especially if they're a law-abiding citizen. However, they don't know that, like, the noble's evil, and that artifact is an important key to stopping his end-of-the-world plot.
Sure.
And they literally just saved millions of people. They don't know any of that.
Nope.
Okay?
Not
So
at all.
that warrants a negative reaction.
Yes.
And this can lead to some great moments for shifting relationships as the context is kind of added to the existing group relationship. You know, an NPC may go from liking or to hating, or hating to liking once that context is added. You know,
I think the other aspect of that is, especially if it's a mechanical thing, for instance, like the person, I come back to Grosse Point Blank as a wonderful scene where he's talking to the senator and he asks him what he does for a living. And he's like, contract assassin. And he's just like, oh, growth industry.
Oh, growth industry, yeah.
Because he really doesn't drift into his mind what he just said. Because he wasn't going to listen the first time, let alone the second.
Right.
And that right there kind of is a role, right? It's him trying to be very honest and very forthright with this guy, because that's what he wants to be at this point, right? He wants that PC wants to step away from that kind of shady, I'm not going to say what I'm doing because I'm not proud of it, to, no, F it, I'm out, right? I'm just going to say what I'm doing, because why lie? But at the same time, that role of, okay, well, is this going to come off well? And the answer is, it does, because the guy really wasn't listening, right? He just kind of accepted it as information and moved on. And sometimes that works really, really well in rolling through conversations that are challenging.
Sure.
Versus having the person just suddenly have a change of heart and be like, oh, that's got to be difficult. No, he doesn't even notice.
Yeah.
He just moves right along.
Yep.
You said your piece, and later on he'll think about what you said, but in that moment...
And then he'll have a reaction to it.
But in that moment, nothing fazed him whatsoever. You were able to move right through it. And that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That works. I think that the PC's actions themselves
speak louder than words.
And it comes in two flavors. I want to put one thing in here ahead of time, a little bit to kind of speak back to our previous point, and that is that your NPCs should not be your DM headspace.
Yeah.
They should be what is happened in the story. Don't have the NPC upset at them because they went into the town and did the thing, but then they talked to someone else out of scene that had nothing to do with what the PCs were doing, and and because of that information, they're now a different person. No. Now you're doing a disservice to all the things that those PCs have connected with that person. Continue the story from the perspective of what has transpired.
Yeah.
The only people who should have external information are power players, your villains, your movers of the story.
People with information networks, essentially,
right.
Yeah.
And anyone else should only be really reacting upon what's happened.
Yeah.
What's physically happened in game and has been
usually
established.
What's happened in front of them.
Yeah. So the PC's actions are the most important things, whether it's something they do away from that NPC or something they actively do with it. And because of that, you get this quest-based structure, right?
Yeah, sure.
That comes from your NPCs and with the PCs.
Yeah, I mean most tabletop RPGs have this sort of thing, and it's a really great gameplay sort of mechanic to give the PCs the impetus to get into and then back out of trouble. You know, your shadow runners, your
Yeah.
deep space explorers, your adventurers who are hired to do odd jobs or whatever, something that has someone go to them and say, I need you to do this thing, and then they go do the dangerous, stupid, inadvisable thing, usually for some sort of monetary reward.
And all of those things that they actively do affects the world around them. It is, in a strange way, its own story.
Yeah.
That sits and rides with the plot. It's what makes it interesting for them is because they are affecting things. Every video game that, pretty much RPG that's out there, has a linear railroad. Whether it's forked in a couple places, it's still the thing that someone programmed and wrote.
Sure.
The interesting part is how you affect those in the story and their side stories, whether they show up for you at the end, whether they're dead earlier in the story, whether someone else notices that you spoke with that person or helped arrange something.
Yeah.
Those are all the little side stories that make the journey different every time. And that's what the players want. They want to know, this person got hired for a job, right? They decided to help anyways. Maybe they helped the farmers. Maybe they overheard about these goblins and decided to do something about it. Now they've aided more than just one person.
Right.
More than the one person who was
and
toxic.
so they've gone from mercenaries to the big damn heroes who care about the village, This very very much like Crushmaw, the troll that I had early on in my own game. You had a village that came out and hired you to get this take care of this troll that had moved into their town, basically. And how did that culminate? They created a village holiday. For you guys, they call it Crushfall. And we had a whole party that celebrated that night, and we did little vignettes of them kind of coming to you and thanking you, and like, hey, I was able to get back into my tailor shop, my seamstress shop, because of you, and I found this bolt of fabric that I've been saving for a rainy day, and I think you should have it.
Right.
Because I wouldn't have this if it weren't for you. And you guys walked out of there with like 3 chickens, a bolt of cloth, like a bunch of potions, and
some random things.
A nice meal in your belly, and great beds to sleep at. Some of them were villagers' beds.
But
that
they
night.
were still. It was still the best that they could offer us.
Right, and that was a direct relationship evolution of from those people of you were hired for a job.
Yeah. Likewise, if your players come into a situation where there's, where it's tense, where there's a lot going on, maybe they overstep a little bit. And instead of being careful about things, they're throwing around fireballs or they're knocking stuff down to take out an enemy, and the people come back to their village and it's nuked.
Oh yeah,
like it's messed up.
Oh yes, but if you are playing one of those games where collateral damage is a thing that you're going to pay attention to, oh absolutely, quickest way to turn saving the village into you're no longer welcome here. Please leave.
Right. Yeah.
Awful thanks for taking care of those bandits, but we'd rather you didn't.
Yeah, and I kind of want to insert Knox's question that came up in the chat here because I want to talk about this just a little bit because I think there's a place for it here, and that is, how do you make relationships with characters whose personality doesn't really change and doesn't seem to have a character growth? I always think of Judge Dredd comics. He's always the same, just that world around him that differs. He's just a force in it. Is that the key? So I'm going to talk about NPCs that don't seem to change. One of the best things you can do is establish an NPC early on that has an attitude in a specific way. Maybe it's a villain. Maybe it's just a hard-nosed person. And then when they return to that person, they have not changed. Everything they've heard about them, everything that they know about them, they're the same. Because the players haven't interacted with them. There is no difference to change. But the moment the players interact with them, it should alter their course. Either make them more angry and more staunch at what they're doing, or upset them that they are the change. But either way, think about those types of characters in other stories. The best thing you can do for an NPC with the players that once they have interaction with them is how do they get affected by it? And in most cases, either they will adjust and see things differently, or maybe even just interact with the PCs in a different way, or they will get disgusted, disrespectful, or straight up angry and fearful and respond in that direction, become worse at what they were. Because any immovable object should only stay immovable and static so long as the PCs don't have it. And that's the key with Dredd. He doesn't change because he is the PC in this case. He doesn't have to. The world changes around him because of his actions.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't disagree with any of that. I've got two thoughts of my own. The first being that I think when you're talking about a comic book character rather than a role-playing character, okay, I think that's the key difference between the two of them.
Sure.
Okay? You need consistency in the character for comics to be able to continue to sell those comics.
Sure.
Okay? Any fan of Judge Dredd needs to be able to pick up any issue of Judge Dredd and see Judge Dredd as they know him and expect him to be. He almost can't afford, from a marketing standpoint, to change.
Right.
You don't have those same constraints in a tabletop role-playing game.
Or even animated.
Right. You should be growing and changing. That's kind of what the... he says there are Dredd tabletop RPGs.
Then they are not going to be the comic.
But your PCs are going to evolve in those.
Correct.
Hopefully.
They're going to be different than Dredd. Regardless of what you think, they are not Dredd.
Yeah.
They are not going to be all stoic mountains of unchanging attitude.
Now, there is something to be said, though. We said something about establishing a baseline.
Yes.
Okay? And the reason you establish the baseline is so that you can establish what is the normal and what is outside of the normal. Okay? So, if you've established a character as friendly, and then suddenly next time you meet them they are cold or aloof or angry, you know that's off their baseline. Something has changed there. There is something to be said about a character who exists as a baseline. Okay? And it is judging how they are reacting consistently to the changes around them that shows you not how they change, but how the environment has changed. You know?
Your greedy noble who runs a town, who has always been greedy and has always been stoic, doesn't change when the town starts burning.
He just becomes more opportunistic.
Correct.
That's all. He's taking advantage of a different crowd now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is the other side of that coin, without a doubt. And it exposes what's happening with that individual.
Right.
Now they go from being just an opportunist to being kind of a jerk opportunist to practically evil.
Yeah, and
selfish and evil.
You can see the change in the town around them by saying, okay, well, you used to rob the rich through deception and politics, and now you're just stealing, you're just looting.
Yeah,
you know, you have descended into you haven't changed one bit, but the situation in the town has deteriorated such that even you, who used to be a respectable villain, are now just a common thief.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
You know. So there's something to be said for that, yeah.
But I think, I kind of want to leave that there because we're stepping ever so closely into our other point here, which is that...
What do you do with all this?
Well, like, I like your use of the word proportional response.
Yes.
I think that's super important. You've said it in the past, and I think it's...
Sweet goddess, please, for the love of all that is good and pure, please keep your responses proportional.
What we're talking...
Nothing kills my soul... Oh, hold on, I gotta pull this salt box right here,
I'll be back
sir.
over here.
Nothing kills my soul more than reading on Reddit your RPG horror stories or your Ask the Dungeon Masters posts about, well... Somebody punched another bar patron and started a bar brawl, so the guards came in and started killing the PCs, and then the PCs killed the guards back, and they killed like 20 of them because they're overpowered godlike, magic item, batteries, and now I don't know what to do with the game. Okay. Buddy, I don't know what to do with your game either, because all that should have been solved the point at which the guards brought lethal force to bear because someone punched someone else in a bar brawl.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
The number of times I have heard, someone was rude to a noble, so I imprisoned them and sentenced them to death. Now I don't know what to do about it. My guy, my dude. Firstly, this would never happen for a lot of reasons. Think about it logically. First off, the noble would not actually do that because it shows that the noble is easily goaded. Okay? If you can provoke them to a death sentence by one slight, you are nothing more than puppy chow to the other nobles. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
If you can provoke a reaction with one word from someone they barely know, yeah, that noble's getting eaten alive. Second off, most legal systems that are not exceptionally corrupt, or ones that the noble in question is at the head of, i.e., you insulted the chief of police or someone like that, the district attorney, will laugh that infraction away. You had him arrested because he implied you were smelly? Buddy, stop wasting my time. I've got real criminals to work on.
Right.
Right. Third off, it's not proportional. No. If a person is rude to you, be rude, or to an NPC, be rude back to them. Slight them in some other way. Inconvenience them. Be dismissive of them. But don't call the guards and sentence them to death.
No.
That's not how things are done.
It's a waste of resources.
Yes. Keep things proportional. A slight deserves a slight. I'm sorry. An interference deserves a warning. Direct and deliberate interference, i.e., you're getting all up in the mob boss's crap and you busted up one of his drug deals or something like that, deserves having the PCs having their noses bloodied or their legs broken. Maybe both. Stay out of my business. This is your last warning. Things will get serious from here. Don't jump to 11 the moment things turn. I'm sorry. I am done. I'm stepping off my soapbox.
I think it was good.
Yeah.
I appreciate all the statements that you made.
I'm going to get a good grade in podcast. Which is something that's normal to want and possible to achieve.
But I think the same goes for any villainy. Villains can also be very respectful and proportionally respectful. They're not going to immediately turn over a leaf because the players were just nice to them, right? But I think that you can say the same for any proportional response in regards to anything positive as well, right? And in some cases, you might get a solid response from a villain who sees you do something wrong, proportionally of like, well, we're going to try and make him interested in us. We're going to try and look like villains to join him. So we're going to do something heinous that he would have done. I'm sorry. A godfather will look sometimes at that and be like, whoa, what are you doing in my town? Like this, we don't do this. Like, yeah, we've broken some legs before in the past when things get serious, but you went and killed somebody during a heist. What the hell are you thinking? That guy had kids.
Right. What's
he going to do tomorrow?
This is a gentleman's business, sir.
Yeah, like, I'm sorry, we rob banks because they're insured.
Exactly.
Not because we want to take mom and pop's money.
We deal in money, not corpses around here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because dead people can't pay you.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's basic understanding of villainy and finances, right? You don't kill off, drug dealers don't kill off the people who are buying their drugs. If they can't pay, they'll figure another way to handle that situation. Because they're paying customers. Like, the only people who don't give a crap whether or not you're living or dying are weapons dealers. They know how that works. The person buying is going to be alive tomorrow.
Yeah.
On both sides.
I mean, there's something to be said about the whole sending a message thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't respond, that shows that you can be stolen from.
Right.
You can be pushed over. So you've got to do something about it. But that's more about creating a threat than it is about creating a body. You know.
Now, that being said, when we're talking about proportionalness, we're also talking about reciprocity. Right? When the PCs act in a certain way, they should be responded to in an equal way. You were saying, if I'm disrespectful to someone...
Vice versa.
Correct.
When they're acted upon, they should act back that sort of way. Yes.
So when a disrespectful or rude comment comes out, that's an equal reciprocity that should return.
Yeah.
But likewise, like swooning and immediately becoming enamored with somebody is not a balanced situation.
Mm-hmm.
That's not reciprocal. There was not enough investment there to make that happen.
Well, it's a trauma response.
it very much could be a trauma response. But the idea is like I love the concept that if the heroes go in to retrieve someone that was captured, right? Mm-hmm. And instead of killing all of the villains' guys all the way down to the last jailer to save one person, they just sneak in, maybe knock out 2 people, and sneak out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe even going so far as to only lock up some of those people into a cell. Like, not even really injure them, just trick them.
Heck, maybe they ransom them. Maybe they deal for them.
Right. In some way. The villain might look about that as quite respectful.
Yeah.
Like, this is just a business.
Yeah, I mean, you've imprisoned my ally. Instead of killing them, clearly you value their life in some small way.
Yeah.
You want something for them. You have something I want. I have something you want. We can come to an arrangement, I'm sure.
Yeah. Likewise, if you don't use lethal force on an enemy, they may not do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They may be like, and likewise, I love the concept, and you brought this up a long time ago, we talked about this, where if a villain had one of his henchmen do something that was out of line, that got pushed too far, then even he, invites the NPCs to dinners, now I want to apologize. I understand that this is an awkward situation, but I need to say that I've handled the situation. And points out the window to Tom, his henchman, hanging outside, over a pit or over the cliff edge with a gag, and he's just like, "No, Tom has been silenced. We already know,
laser beams
we already know what he's done, but I wanted to let you know I've handled that situation, and I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Money has already been sent to the village, and I will make sure that the young lady who lost her father is taken care of. I am sorry. That was not our way. I may be a monster in some ways, but that was callous."
Yeah.
And you can be taken back, but at the same time, that is setting a level. And that really shows value in your game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of where this sticks into is that what you express through your NPCs in the way that they have relationships with PCs expresses the values that are important in the darkest of settings.
Yeah.
Having a little bit of honor or respect be really recognized shows that has value that is way beyond monetary value within the story.
Yeah, I've been playing through Cyberpunk 2077 lately, and there's a great part of the main storyline. I'll try to avoid spoilers in case anybody hasn't played it, but I mean, the setting is Night City, and it's this just awful, cynical place full of corruption and corporate control and gang violence on every street corner. And it just and in the storyline in the main story, specifically at this point that I'm obliquely making reference to, is dark.
Mm-hmm.
It is dark, having to do with some human trafficking, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you go in and you rescue this victim, and basically show compassion for them, even though they were nothing more than a business contact.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another NPC that you're kind of helping out with this, because she's very attached to this person, and is kind of begging you to just do something, and you do. And she doesn't have any money to pay you. This isn't a job. She's not hiring you as an edge runner or anything like that. She's just concerned for her friend, and you take it upon yourself to help out.
Yeah.
And in that, there's these really great, sweet moments between you and this other NPC where she's like, "You didn't have to do any of this. Why are you doing this? I don't understand." And you're like, "It just wasn't right." "Oh, okay. Thanks." And she's just, it's this real stark contrast, because you're the one person showing compassion in this awful place, in this awful situation with these awful people. and you just did something out of the goodness of your own heart. And I think in any other setting, that would be like, oh, hey, you rescued the damsel in distress, you know? Because of course you did. You're the big damn hero. But in this setting, because it's so dark, even that little flicker of light that you show, even if you do it for cynical reasons, still shines really, really brightly because you've established that baseline is so dark.
There's a scene in Wheel of Time that I caught where, and I don't know all the factions and everything, but I remember that that some of the characters, as they split up, have their own little stories. The blacksmith's husband from the very beginning, Bren? No, I'm trying to remember.
I'm sorry, which story?
Blacksmith's Wheel of Time.
In Wheel of Time, yeah.
I can't remember his name.
The blacksmith's husband?
Well, the blacksmith dies right at the opening, and it's her husband that moves on.
Oh, Perrin.
Perrin, thank you. I think it's Brennan, but anyways.
Because in the books, that wife doesn't exist.
Well, there you go.
That's why I was like, wait, who are you talking about?
This is the only reference I know.
Yeah.
He saves, effectively, an assassin from a desert community where water is honored.
Yeah.
And in that scene,
Avienda.
after getting her out and them literally about to be murdered by a troop, the guy who's basically left alive at the end, she's about to kill him, and he says, stop. Mm-hmm. He stops her dead. All of these people were ready to murder them both. Mm-hmm. But he checks one thing and says, he gave you water.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's a check mark you need to accept. Mm-hmm. And she does, without a question. And they move on.
Yeah.
And it's...
Yeah.
And the guy on the ground looks and says, who are you? And that question lingers in the air, not asking him physically who he is, or what kind of a person he is, but who are you in this world to even think that that's okay?
Right. What do you know of the Aiel Desert people?
But not even so much that, but like, we are at war here, and you just changed the field. Stop making me feel things, buddy. Like, like that's an emotional cost we can't have in this day and age.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of feeling that comes out of that question. But when those questions get asked, that's evolution. That's character evolution of your NPCs happening right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, time to get in the big R?
The big R. We're going to talk about it, guys. We promised we were talking about romance.
It's exciting and new.
All right.
Come aboard with us. We're expecting.
All right, so here's the thing. We talked a lot about, like, friendships and especially, like, hero-villain relationships and stuff like that, and positive, negative reactions out of just rando NPCs.
Now we're just getting on the ship.
All right. Romance.
Yeah.
How do you do it? Can you do it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. You can do romance at your table.
Yes.
I think romance gets kind of a bad rap because some people can get really weird about it.
Well, I mean, let's start where the inception really hit. 17-year-olds at a table talking about romance are not talking about the same level of romance that we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's where the bad rap begins.
and I think all too often we also have the whole, like, I roll persuasion to seduce the barmaid sort of.
Because I want to do them.
Yeah, I want to do them.
Yeah, that whole thing. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have that as their model for what romance in a TTRPG means, and that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Romance evolves like any other relationship.
Yeah.
You know? You establish a baseline for the relationship.
Sure.
You take the NPCs, or so you take the PC's words and actions into account for how it will change that relationship.
Yep.
And then you have the NPC take proactive actions that will respond to the relationship as it's been established.
Yep.
No different.
Yep.
And that reaction basically in this is, hey, do you want to get dinner sometime? We've done a couple jobs together, and then we talked about it, and there was that one night where you told me what a rough time you were having with, Arasaka security breathing down your neck and stuff like that, and just, I feel like we really bonded that night. Did you want to grab a drink? Mm-hmm. That's the start of a romance there.
I also think of, like, Victor Victoria, where you've got a character who is interested in somebody but can't get too close to them, but is just enamored.
Yeah.
And that building of that starts in one direction and suddenly takes turns in all kinds of ways, because now beyond simple admiration, you get respect and trust and understanding. And all of that is building on top of something that cannot be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And secrets, that sit on top of that even.
Man, Victor Victoria, you just pull out all the old movies, man.
Hey, I for those of you youngins or illiterates who are unfamiliar, the idea is that in a grand scale, without ruining anything, is a woman disguises herself as a man to get close to another gentleman, and live in the man's world, and doesn't expose that she is a he is a she until much longer into the story when basically they are comrades.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was the original pilot for Mulan.
Pretty much.
All right, so keep in mind, too, because I know this is going to be a touchy subject for everybody.
Yes.
Sex is not a necessary step in a romance.
Contact, intimacy, in that physical intimacy is not necessary.
Right. Intimacy
Yes.
is just the act of getting close to one another. It is just sharing things that are private, sharing things that are close to your soul.
Yeah. They're held in secret inside.
Exactly. Okay. So there's plenty of ways to be intimate without role playing a sex scene at the table. Think of your favorite movies. Okay, for a great model for this, there are plenty of family-friendly movies. Okay, that we see romantic relationships in. Little Mermaid,
Yeah.
one of my favorite movies. Disney, sanitized, it's rated G. Little Mermaid. Ariel leaves the Sea Kingdom behind for her romantic and anthropological. She was a scientist.
She was.
Her pursuits, right? And we never concern ourselves with her and Prince Eric boinking.
The closest we get is a kiss.
Yeah, there's that steamy little kiss the girl, sort of scene where there's a whole will she won't she sort of G-rated sexual tension. But we can have a romance story that is perfectly suitable for all audiences. That is you don't need to take it to those steps, right? You don't need to shy away from romance in your stories because you believe those steps are necessary. I guarantee they're not. Okay.
I go back to P.S. I Love You. Fantastic movie on the main plot. The subplot is her relationship with Harry Connick Jr. And it ends with their relationship really doesn't end, but it culminates to a point where they eventually agree to kiss and discover that it's the weirdest thing for both of them, and they should go back to being friends. And it's beautiful. The romance of the two of them is beautiful.
Yeah,
both
sure.
in the pausing and figuring it out and accepting, and then finally coming to terms with the fact that they're like brother and sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the fun part of the relationship.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what you want to keep.
And look, if sex does come up, and it might, we're role-playing human relationships out there.
Yep.
The people have sex all the time, all right?
Yes.
Y'all can always fade to black.
Yeah.
Nobody has to role-play out their sexual fetishes at the table.
Please don't.
Please do not role-play your fetishes at the table.
I'm just going to take a second here. We're going to
RPG horror stories.
We're just going to take a pause so that everyone who has ever played Vampire the Masquerade in a weird situation can accept their trauma that they've experienced. Okay, now we're going to move on.
A moment of silence for all those storytellers who said, well, it's vampire. It's inherently rapey.
No.
Stop.
No.
Stop.
Okay, thank you for sharing that trauma with me.
Yeah.
That being said, there are tools. There are X cards, there are veils, there are lines. There's a check on the table that somebody can put their hand on and go, are we okay with where we're at with this right now?
And role-playing romance is probably one of the biggest places you're going to have need of those safety tools.
Consent.
Okay. And not that you shouldn't always maintain consent at your table for other stuff, but romance is probably the biggest one that walks that line.
Well, and not only that, it's not just the consent of the person that are involved in this. There are other people at that table.
Yeah.
Okay? Communication is necessary, not just for the scene that's happening, but for everyone who's involved and whether or not they are comfortable with it. You did a great job of checking with the player at our game of whether or not they were going to be okay with an NPC who has gotten close to their PC stepping into the next phase.
This was my fishing NPC, because this is the player that likes to adopt and have these sort of romantic relationships and whatnot. But even still, even knowing that this is that type of character who does often look for that type of role play at the table, when that relationship did hit that stride where things were becoming romantic, and moving from comradeship to romantic relationship.
Yep.
I discussed it out of character with them a couple of times actually, and was like, "Hey, are you cool with it evolving in this direction? Are you cool with it if he tries to kiss your character? Are you okay with me, with that scene happening? Okay." And I'm telling you, my line is, if it evolves into anything else, I'm going to fade to black it. Is that okay with you?
Right.
And I would say not only did that make the scenes come across very well, but also that player was very thankful for me, and thanked me directly for making sure that their feelings were taken into account. And that even though we've known each other for, God, like 3 decades or something like that at this point. God, it has been 3 decades.
It has been 3 decades.
Even though we've known each other that long, that I still make sure every step of the way that this is not over a line.
And as you progress the story up to that point, you asked the rest of the table before the scene started, because they knew what was going to happen. You had painted that out for them, but not for the table. You said, we're about to do this scene in a garden. Is everybody okay with a little bit of an intimate moment? And we all said yes, and just said, we'll let you know otherwise. And that was it.
Yep.
And then at the end of that, it was, and we're going to fade.
Yep.
It was perfect. But you addressed it with the table. You put that hand out on the check effectively and said, are we good?
Yeah.
Can we continue? And you gave us all a good, solid check-in to make sure that everybody was solid, that it wasn't just a quick hand wave of a few players and you were like, okay, screw the rest. No, you gave it a good, solid check.
Yeah.
Which was wonderful to see.
I think it was pretty PG. Ultimately, I mean, when it comes down to it, for anybody who's curious how it panned out, there was like some words of affection, a tentative little kiss that, when it was reciprocated, became more emphatic, and then basically he kind of went, "Let's retire to my quarters."
Yeah, and that was it.
Fade to black. Boom.
Yep.
That's romance, guys.
Yep.
That's it.
And it was wonderful.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful. So, comfort of everyone at the table is more important than the storyline. So if you've already established things with another player, make sure that the table is comfortable with it as well.
Yeah, agreed.
Otherwise, you can just have it be background between you and that player and implied.
Yep.
No worries there.
All right. Well, I think I beat this dead horse pretty good.
I think so.
You want to roll into some questions?
Yeah, let's finish this off.
Alrighty. Nevim, our rock, our steady, says, how do you maintain lifelike relationships between PCs and NPCs during different game sessions?
Consistency is important. And just like any good TV show, rechecking and having your NPC be kind of a checkpoint for that player, meaning when they see them for the first time, they immediately see the reaction that they're expecting, right? Unless there's something that they know is changing, that they're going there to see a change, the expectation should be that they are in the same state that they left them in, so that they can then turn the scene.
Yeah, sure, okay.
That's my thing. Is like there's no reason why the innkeep should suddenly be angry at them at the next morning, a month later, because he knows something they don't. Okay, he can be upset about something else, but as far as those players are concerned, unless like they left his bar in shambles the night before, and they wake up in the morning and go downstairs with a sheepish look to look at him. Now they're, if the player says, "Hey, I'm gonna go down with some gold really early in the morning and see if I can check in with the innkeep." Okay, you've painted how this scene's gonna open. I'm gonna have the innkeep be a little tired and a little grumpy at you. but he's still happy you're here in pain.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's no reason why he's unhappy with you. Things happen, you're taking care of it. It's at the same regard, like, if your chief hates you because you blow up the town half the time but always save the right people, like, he is always going to have that attitude when you walk into his office to ask for something else. I need the expense account. You need the what? Do you know how much our insurance costs every month because of you?
You're a powder keg balanced on a knife's edge.
Exactly. So, like, that's not going to change. He's not going to suddenly be like, well, you did save the mayor last week. No. He is still going to be angry at you about everything.
Welcome to the force. Here's your badge and your gun. Your first assignment, you're suspended. Turn in your badge and your gun.
Exactly. But that's what I got to say for that one.
I think for me, I'm going to give a little more... I guess material, practical, tangible sort of answer on this one, and that is, take notes whenever a PC interacts at length with an NPC. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to have elaborate notes on this or anything like that, okay? But take notes when a PC interacts with an NPC on more than just a superficial level, okay? If they show interest, if they ask follow-up questions, if they go out of their way to seek that NPC out.
They buy them a gift.
Something like that, exactly. Something that indicates to you that PC, that player is interested in that NPC, maybe not romantically, but is just shows interest in their part of the story. I want to know more. I want this NPC to be part of the story more, right? So, take notes of what those interactions were like. Did the PC act upon them in any sort of way that would evoke an emotional response from them? Okay? Make that emotional response deliberate and pronounced next time they meet that NPC. Okay? Bought them flowers, and the lady was very flattered by it, and maybe now she's catching a little feelings. Maybe she's a little flirty with them next time.
Or maybe she isn't.
Yeah.
Maybe she was disgusted by the offer.
It's all entirely up to who the NPC is and where they sit in the story and stuff like that. You want that response to be proportional and make sense. But take note of it, because when a player character goes out of their way to interact with an NPC, they're indirectly telling you, I am interested in this NPC and want them to be part of the story.
Yeah.
Okay? I want this to be a more major character than they already are. Okay? Yeah, and that's basically it.
I love it.
Just take those notes and make sure you pronounce that reaction. Yeah.
So Kaliki is our next one. Some RPGs mechanically incentivizing establishing relationships between players and characters. Example, the after session questionnaire for Alien RPG rewards XP when characters risk something for their buddy or challenge their rival PC. We talked about a few other ones that we had, and drama is always a big thing. What other games are out there that incentivize players into establishing or acting out relationships? Honestly, there's a number of them. 7th Sea does it in the case of drama, and drama eventually turns into XP. Let's see.
Lots of Powered by the Apocalypse systems ask you to establish direct relationships during character creation by going around the table, one to your left, one to your right, to have some sort of a bond with them, whether it's mistrust or whether it's friendship or mentorship or they owe you or something.
It's pretty common. I think Vampire had a slight system involved in it as well, as far as building up some ranks and things. To a degree, Burning Wheel does it as well with circles. Yeah. Because again, it's part of that, like, gaining almost reputation with individuals and with areas.
You want to know the best one that always just rings out in my mind for relationship systems is Arc Doom.
Yeah, no, that was fantastic.
Arc Doom had this really cool system where basically you have kind of like a grid. It's it's a grid. It makes it sound so much more complicated. But go back and listen to our system spotlight on that. I don't remember when that was. But it's basically you get bonuses for acting in another player's best interest if you are bonded to them, basically. And the grid kind of shows how deep that bond is. And you can essentially burn part of your bond with them to intervene on their behalf on
It was
certain things.
October 12th, 2022, episode 180.
There you are. Thank you.
So there was that system spotlight.
Yeah,
So,
really great system.
yeah, once you said it, I was like, crap, that's right, that was one. So the second one is, what are some of your favorite subsystems like this? Like you
Hey,
pointed out?
Arc Doom. That's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
I like the way 7th Sea did it with drama dice, where it was basically players could spend drama to bring their drama into the game, and therefore get more XP for it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Which is great. Or the storyteller could drop a drama die to bring in drama into the story and therefore bring XP into the game as well.
Yeah, I gotta say, it was always a weird feeling at the beginning of the game where you're like, okay, does anybody have any drama dice to spend? And having me hand you one of my 2 drama dice, you don't get a lot, and me handing you one of them and going, I'd really like it if you threw my rival into this one to screw my character over, please.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Let's have some drama in the story. Yeah. And
I just braced for impact for the first 45 minutes till they show up.
Yeah. And it's those kinds of moments that bring a check into the story and make the story interesting, but also lets the player have that draw.
Yeah.
You know, that brings what they chose, what they put on their sheet, what makes them feel like they tick in a specific way.
Yep.
So I think that's pretty good.
It felt a little bit like handing a riding crop, to someone and being like, please hurt me, mistress.
Yeah.
Which brings us to next week's topic.
We've
danced around this one quite a bit.
Actually, we've had this discussion specifically multiple times in the last 5 years. We have talked about how role-playing games, whether in the way that they are presented, and oftentimes the way they're poorly depicted, and poorly ran, honestly, really mimics another culture and genre, and that is BDSM.
Yep.
We have removed whole sections of discussion that we have had that never made it to air, and then we said, we're done with the show soon. We might as well burn this bridge hard with whatever is going to go after us.
We're not alienating anybody anymore. We're not going to be losing listeners because we're not going to have any listeners in a couple months. So might as well have this discussion.
So we're going to talk about what BDSM teaches us about TTRPGs.
Nox says, did you foreplay us all month?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did.
I think we might have 5 played.
So at least 5 played.
So next episode is going to be spicy, and possibly enlightening in some ways that you're not going to expect.
Yeah.
But understand that both of us, both Sarah and I, have a lot of respect for both TTRPGs and BDSM, and we will be giving it a thorough rundown, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
So look forward to hearing you all next week's questions. I'm kind of intrigued to see what comes up out of this. So.
And you can find us on Twitter at @ST_Conclave, on Instagram at @ST_Conclave, listen to us live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on mixlr.com/storyteller-conclave. And join us on our Discord. We'd love to hear from you. Join the other great storytellers that are on there. Talk about your campaign. Shoot us some questions. We'd love to have some more questions here.
Definitely.
You can find that link on our Twitter as well as our website, storytellerconclave.com, and I will die before I call it X.
Thank you. We'd like to thank our Patreon members who support us every month, and I hope will continue to support us after our next show, especially our name members, Knox in the Box, Subjet, The Arcane Asylum, Veteran, Hulavu Sean, Sam, and Sparkle Motion. We appreciate all your support. Our pre-show music is by Arcane Anthems. You can find that at patreon.com/arcaneanthems. Our intro music is Beyond the Warriors by Geefrog. You can find them at geefrog.bandcamp.com or on YouTube Music. And our outro music, which you're hearing right now, is Only Our Footprints in the Sand by Midair Machine. You can find them at freemusicarchive.org.
And a big shout out, as always, to our families, Vicky and Sean. Thank you so much for loving and supporting us. To my fiancé, Sean. All of our friends who sat at our tables over the years give you these great stories to share with you, and you, every single one of our listeners. We love you guys so much.
We love you. Good night.